They call it a slum. But this is no ordinary slum. Today we infiltrate Deonar, one of the most shocking places on Earth. Here people live not next to the sewer but on top of it. Deonar is Mumbai's largest dumping ground, where mountains of trash burn day and night, and families survive inches above toxic sludge. The smell hits you before you see it, thick, acrid, and everywhere. Flies swarm like black clouds. Children run barefoot through piles of waste while smoke stings your eyes. Right next to India's financial capital, this hidden world festers. This is a raw, unfiltered journey into Deonar's floating slum and the brutal fight for survival. Stay with us. The truth is harder to look away from than you think. Number 1. Life on a mountain of trash. Can you imagine a place bigger than 200 football fields and taller than a 12-story building? Not as a monument or a skyscraper, but as a mountain of trash. Now imagine this: people live there, not beside it, not near it. They live on it. This is Deonar, the oldest and largest dumping ground in India. Founded in the year 1927, Deonar has grown into a toxic megastructure on the eastern edge of Mumbai. It's not just a landfill, it's a landscape. A breathing, burning beast made of decades worth of rotting waste rising higher every year. Every single day, Mumbai, a city of more than 20 million people, produces nearly 8,000 metric tons of garbage. That's roughly the weight of 1,000 African elephants per day, and a staggering 60% of that waste ends up right here in Deonar. From a distance it looks like a hill, brown, black, and steaming. But get closer and it begins to move. Crows, dogs, rats. Then the people. Hundreds of families walking barefoot across broken glass, tangled wire, and used syringes. Children chasing each other through thick clouds of smoke. Mothers cooking over open flames, their pots blackened by soot. No roads, no pavements, just trash. But here's the part that shocks most people. Deonar isn't abandoned. It's home. You heard that right? Home. For thousands of men, women, and children. Deonar is not just a place to survive, it's where life happens. Babies are born, meals are shared, stories are told, and dreams, fragile as they are, still exist. Why? Why would anyone live in such a place? That's the question people ask. But it's the wrong question. The truth is they didn't choose Deonar. Deonar chose them. Many of the people here are migrants, driven from their rural homes by poverty, drought, or caste-based discrimination. Others were evicted from informal settlements in central Mumbai, pushed to the city's margins where land is cheap, or in this case, completely uninhabitable. In Deonar, the air is thick with methane, and every breath feels like inhaling burnt rubber mixed with decay. Fires erupt without warning, spontaneous combustion caused by pressure beneath the piles. In 2016, one of those fires lasted for over a week, cloaking Mumbai in smoke and sending hundreds to the hospital. And it hasn't stopped since. Even now, in 2025, satellite data shows frequent heat anomalies, meaning underground fires are still silently burning beneath the feet of families. But for those who live here, this isn't breaking news. This is just Tuesday. Deonar is a paradox. Just a few miles west lies Bandra, where luxury apartments sell for millions of rupees and cappuccinos cost more than what a scavenger earns in a week. One side of the city polishes its glass towers. The other side chokes on its leftovers. And yet the people of Deonar endure. They wake before sunrise to sort trash, not as a job, but as a means of survival. Plastic bottles, aluminum cans, copper wires. Whatever can be sold is separated by hand, often by children. A kilo of recyclable plastic might fetch 20 rupees, which is about 25 cents. That's enough for a small meal, maybe. There's a word people use to describe the residents of Deonar: invisible. Invisible to policymakers, invisible to mainstream media, invisible to a society that moves too fast to look down. But we're here to change that. Because behind every torn tarp and rusted tin roof is a person. Someone with a name, a story, a voice. And here's the twist. Amid all this decay and devastation, there's dignity, there's defiance, there's community. So yes, this might be a floating slum, a patchwork of huts built on a river of garbage, but it's also a neighborhood. It's messy, it's broken, but it's alive. As we step deeper into Deonar, we'll meet the people who call it home. We'll see how they eat, drink, work, and dream in the shadows of a mountain made of the world's waste. But this story isn't just about poverty. It's about resilience. It's about injustice. And it's about a system that lets mountains of trash grow taller than the hopes of the people who live beside them. This isn't fiction. This isn't exaggerated. This is India's Deonar, unfiltered, unmasked, and unseen by most of the world. Number 2. Water disease and daily danger. When we talk about survival, most of us think of food, maybe shelter. But in Deonar, the first thing people fight for every morning is water. Yes, water. The most basic human need has become a luxury in one of the world's harshest places to live. In some parts of Deonar, families get water for just 1 to 2 hours a day, and that's on a good day. In other areas, the taps run dry for days at a time, and when the water finally comes, it isn't clean, it's yellow, it smells of metal and sewage. And yet, this is what people drink, cook with, bathe in, because there's no other choice. You'll see long lines by broken public taps at 4 in the morning. Grandmothers balancing buckets, kids holding bottles, teenagers fighting for their place. One resident told us, "Clean water here is harder to find than drugs." That's not an exaggeration. It's a brutal truth. And why is that? The answer lies underground. Deonar sits atop decades of decomposing waste, where old sewage pipes run dangerously close to drinking water lines. Many of these pipes are cracked or rusted through. Contamination is constant. In 2024, a joint study by Mumbai's Water Authority and the Indian Institute of Public Health found that over 70% of households in informal settlements near Deonar showed signs of E. coli and fecal bacteria in their water supply. But even if you survive the water, you're not safe. Because just walking the streets of Deonar, if you can call them that, is a risk in itself. There are no sidewalks here, no drainage, just narrow paths slick with mud oil and trash juice. During monsoon season, the ground becomes a river of filth. In the dry months, the air is thick with dust and smoke. You don't walk, you wade. One boy, about 12 years old, walks with a limp. He fell into a sewage ditch while chasing after a plastic bag. His leg got infected. By the time his family scraped together enough money for a clinic visit, it was too late. He now drags his right foot behind him like a shadow. That's not uncommon. Worse yet, when medical care is available, it's not always safe. Local NGOs report that many residents avoid government clinics altogether. Why? Because of mistakes. Dangerous mistakes. There's a story that gets whispered in the alleys of a young girl 5 years old, paralyzed after being injected with the wrong vaccine. Whether it's myth or memory, the fear is real. And then there's the air. Deonar isn't just polluted, it's toxic. Fires break out regularly. The methane trapped under millions of tons of trash builds pressure until it bursts into flame. The sky turns gray. The stench of burning plastic settles like a blanket. Respiratory disease here is not just common, it's expected. A recent 2025 health survey conducted by a coalition of urban clinics found that over 80% of residents in the Deonar region show signs of chronic lung issues, including asthma, bronchitis, and long-term damage in children as young as 4. But even disease is not the only threat. Another danger lies hidden in plain sight: addiction. At first, you don't see it, but once you know what to look for, it's everywhere. Boys, no older than 10 or 11, sitting in circles, plastic bags pressed to their mouths. They're inhaling correction fluid or glue, whatever they can find that gives them a moment of escape. Their eyes are empty, their bodies small, their childhood stolen. I beat my son one. Mother tells us through tears. Not because I hate him, but because I want to save him. He's only 13, but the glue, it took him. And I don't know how to get him back. These are not isolated stories. According to a 2025 report by the Mumbai Child Welfare Commission, over 30% of minors in slum zones like Deonar have been exposed to inhalant abuse before the age of 13, Many are recruited into local gangs or pulled into cycles of violence, theft, and survival sex. So the question becomes, how do you protect your children when the ground beneath you poisons them and the air around them chokes them? How do you heal your community when the very system that's supposed to help you has forgotten you exist? Water, health, safety. These aren't luxuries, they're rights. But in Deonar, each one is a fight against contamination, against neglect, against addiction, against a city that keeps expanding upwards, while thousands below it are sinking into despair. And yet somehow people endure. They don't just wake up, they rise every day to fetch water, to find work, to protect their children, to breathe through the smoke. Because for the people of Deonar, survival is not just an instinct, it's a form of resistance. Number 3, poverty policy and prejudice. There's poverty, and then there's Deonar. But what makes this place feel different is the silence around it. The way the world seems to turn a blind eye, not out of ignorance, but convenience. We met a woman maybe in her early 40s, though her face looked much older, sitting outside a shack, patched together with rusted tin and plastic bags. The camera hadn't even started rolling before her eyes filled with tears. And then she said something I'll never forget. If you plan to kill the poor, do it quickly. We've been dying slowly for years. It wasn't just what she said. It was how she said it. Not with anger, not with rage, but with exhaustion. As if she'd already accepted that no one was coming to help. And she's not wrong. According to the 2025 Urban Health Index, the average life expectancy in Deonar's slum zones is less than 40 years. That's nearly half of Mumbai's citywide average, which sits just above 70. Let that sink in. 2 neighborhoods in the same city. One where people retire at 70, another where people die by then, if they're lucky. But it's not just the poverty. It's the way policies are drawn and who gets left out of the blueprint. Take this. In 2022, the Mumbai Development Authority proposed relocating thousands of families from Dharavi, one of Asia's largest informal settlements, to housing near Deonar. The reason: urban renewal. The effect: doubling the population density in an area already choking on garbage smoke and disease. Several human rights groups, including the Indian Center for Inclusive Cities, filed objections. Their reports warned that pushing more families into Deonar wasn't relocation, it was displacement disguised as development. Imagine that solving one humanitarian crisis by feeding another. Why not invest in proper housing, in waste management, in dignity? The answer, many say, is rooted in who's seen as worth saving. And that brings us to a deeper truth. Not all lives are treated equally in Deonar. Among the most marginalized are the Kinnur, India's transgender and non-binary community. Legally recognized in India since 2014, the Kinnur still face daily discrimination, especially in conservative and religiously rigid neighborhoods, like those around Deonar. We spoke to a young trans woman, 23 years old, who lives here with 6 others in what they call their chosen family. She told us about trying to rent a room only to hear the landlord laugh in her face. "He's a transgender person," the man had said, waving her off. "How could he ever give us a grandchild?" It wasn't just a rejection, it was erasure. In many parts of Indian society, transgender individuals are seen as untouchable, not quite men, not quite women, and never fully human in the eyes of those who live by rigid gender roles. And yet, ironically, many Kinnars here have become the most nurturing. They care for each other's children, pool money for food, even create safe zones for young queer teens escaping violence at home. It's not just survival, it's resistance through compassion. So what happens when an entire community is shoved into the margins and then forgotten there? You get Deonar? You get neighborhoods with no street names, no hospitals, no postal codes. You get kids who don't know what an air conditioner feels like, but know exactly how to tell the difference between good glue and bad glue, because they sniff it to forget hunger. You get families who can't afford to dream anymore, because dreaming is a luxury, and in Deonar, luxuries can get you killed. But perhaps the greatest tragedy is not what's visible, it's what's not. The invisible policies, the invisible barriers, the invisible people. Because make no mistake, the neglect of places like Deonar is not accidental. It's strategic. By keeping them out of sight, society gives itself permission to forget. And when you forget people long enough, they start to forget themselves. But not entirely. Because even here, beneath the layers of soot and sorrow, people still try. They build families, even if the world says their love is invalid. They speak out, even if no one's listening. They clean their space, even when the city piles on more garbage the next day. So the question is not whether these people matter. The question is, why haven't we treated them like they do? As this story continues, we'll meet the artists, teachers, and community leaders trying to change the narrative from within. But first, we have to face the truth, the whole uncomfortable, undeniable truth, that inequality is not a side effect of poverty, it is its architect. Number 4. Hope that refuses to die. Even in the darkest places, light finds a way in, and in Deonar, a place we've come to know for its mountains of waste and staggering hardship, that light comes not from governments or aid agencies, but from the people themselves. You see, Deonar may look like a slum from the outside, but to those who live here, it's more than just a pile of scrap and soot. To you, it's a dump, one man told us. But to me, it's a palace. He wasn't being sarcastic. He meant it deeply, because in this place where everything is stripped away, clean air, clean water, even dignity, what remains is something powerful: community. Walk down a narrow path during dinner time and you'll see it. Plastic bowls passed hand to hand, a pot of lentils stretched to feed 3 families, children eating with fingers laughing through smoke, a grandmother gives her last piece of flatbread to the youngest in the room. It's not much, but somehow it's always enough to share. And that's the paradox of poverty. It strips you of comfort, but it can reveal compassion in its rawest form. In Deonar, kindness is not charity, it's survival. But food alone doesn't fill the soul or the future. That's where education steps in. And perhaps one of the most remarkable things we found in Deonar wasn't a program funded by a foreign NGO. It was a homemade school built out of scrap wood and hope. Run by a group of local young adults, most of them barely out of their teens, this free learning center teaches over 100 children every week. No desks, no uniforms, just chalkboards, plastic stools, and a shared will to rise. Many of these young teachers never finished high school themselves. Some learned to read by candlelight between shifts at the landfill. So why do they teach? Because if we wait for help, nothing will change. One of them said, but if we teach the next kids, maybe they'll grow up helping each other, not just surviving one more day. That's the philosophy here. Don't wait for a handout. Become the hand that reaches back. In a city where opportunity is often locked behind glass towers and gated neighborhoods, education is more than a tool, it's a lifeline, and it's working. According to a 2025 grassroots education audit, informal learning centers in Mumbai's slums, including Deonar, have contributed to a 28% increase in primary school literacy among children ages 6 to 12. It's slow, it's uneven, but it's real. And yet hope doesn't only live in classrooms. Sometimes it speaks through art, through rhythm, through rhyme. That's how we met Arif, a soft-spoken 20-year-old with fierce eyes and a spiral-bound notebook he treats like a treasure chest. He started writing rap lyrics when he was just 5 years old. Why so young? Because the world didn't listen when I cried, he said, but maybe it would listen when I rhymed. In Deonar, rap isn't just music, it's therapy, it's protest, it's storytelling in a place where stories are often buried under garbage and silence. Arif's verses don't shy away from the hard stuff. They talk about addiction, eviction, hunger, fear. But there's something else too, a stubborn kind of optimism, a belief that words once spoken can't be ignored. Rap is the light in the darkness of my life, he told us. And when he performs in alleys and classrooms, sometimes on plastic crates in the middle of the street, kids gather eyes wide, not because he's famous, but because he's free, and in a place like this that's contagious. You see, in Deonar, art isn't a luxury, it's a language. It's how people scream without shouting, how they fight without fists, and how they stay human when everything around them says they don't matter. From a shared piece of bread to a chalkboard covered in verbs, To a verse scribbled under candlelight, hope is alive here. It may be bruised, it may be buried, but it's breathing. So the next time someone calls Deonar a wasteland, remember this. Wastelands don't build schools. Wastelands don't write poetry. Wastelands don't raise kids with empty bellies and full hearts. People do, and as long as people like Arif, like those young teachers, like the grandmother with one last roti, as long as they keep fighting, then Deonar is not just a place of survival, it's a place of resistance, a place of rebirth, and most importantly, a place worth listening to. Number 5, a challenge to all of us. Let's be honest, when people hear the word slum, they picture crime, they picture drugs, they picture chaos, and Deonar. It fits that picture a little too well. But here's the problem with pictures. They can lie, or worse, they can tell only part of the truth. Because for every story of addiction in Deonar, there's a story of resilience. For every case of violence, there's an act of compassion. And for every statistic that makes you want to look away, there's a face that begs you to look again. One local teacher put it this way: not everyone here is a criminal. Not everyone is an addict. Some are students, some are artists, some are mothers working 3 jobs just to feed their kids. You see, we have this habit as a society of painting people in places like Deonar with a single brush. But what if we looked a little closer? What if we understood that even in the muddiest waters, a lotus can bloom? It's easy to forget that it's easy to drive past a slum and think that's their problem. Or worse, they'll never change. But here's a question we need to ask ourselves, not as journalists or politicians or policymakers, but as human beings. Have we ever truly given them the tools to change? Because when we say they won't change, what we often mean is we gave up on them a long time ago. And that's on us. In 2025, India's urban population crossed the mark of 500 million people. That's more than the entire population of the United States, all packed into cities already bursting at the seams. More people, more slums, more inequality, more silence. So what do? Do we keep stepping over the problem? Or do we finally decide to lean in? Because here's the truth. We all play a part, whether we admit it or not. Governments need to stop pretending temporary housing and cleanup drives are enough. They're not. We need sustainable policies, community-driven planning, and accountability. The media needs to stop showing slums only when there's a fire or a riot. Stories like Deonar deserve headlines, not just footnotes. And the rest of us? We need to stop scrolling past suffering. Because every time we repost a meme about first world problems, someone out there is boiling yellow water to bathe their baby. Every time we say, that's just the way things are, we're agreeing to let them stay that way. But it doesn't have to be this way. Small actions matter. A share, a donation, a letter to your local representative. Even talking about Deonar over dinner tonight, that's how awareness grows. And awareness, my friends, is the seed of every revolution. We don't need to save the world in one day, but we do need to start seeing the parts of it we've ignored for too long. And let's be clear, this isn't about guilt, it's about responsibility. Because once you've heard the stories of mothers building classrooms out of garbage, once you've seen a 5-year-old rap about poverty and pride, once you've watched a teenager hold his younger siblings during a fire because no one else would, you can't unknow it. And that's the moment where change begins. So if you're still watching, if you're still here listening, feeling, then maybe that seed is already growing in you too. And maybe Deonar isn't a story about tragedy, maybe it's a challenge to see humanity in places we were taught to ignore, to recognize potential in people we were told to forget, to believe even now that we can do better. So let's not just watch, let's not just feel bad and move on, let's speak up. Share this, ask questions, demand more. Because the people of Deonar aren't asking for charity, they're asking for a chance, and that is something all of us can help give. In a world that moves fast and often looks away, Deonar reminds us of something simple and deeply human, that even in the most forgotten corners, people still fight to live, to learn, to love, and to dream. This journey through Mumbai's floating slum wasn't just about exposing harsh realities. It was about recognizing dignity where others see only despair. It was about listening to voices that rarely get heard, and realizing that survival in places like this is a kind of courage we can all learn from. If this story moved you, if it made you see the world a little differently, consider joining the conversation. Leave a comment, share your thoughts, or simply hit like and subscribe to follow more untold journeys around the globe. Thank you for watching. This is NVL Travel Documentary, where every place has a story and every story deserves to be seen.